Hey guys, we are live. Thanks for your patience and welcome to another Product School Talk. I have a special guest with us today. His name is Dave Mathias, and he is the founder and CEO of Beyond the Data. So hi Dave, welcome today.
Well, good to be here, Cassandra. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. I know you have a presentation set up for us, so if you wanted to start screen sharing, we can get started with that.
Yeah, so I'm just switching over.
Awesome. And guys, as you know, I'm Cassandra, and following the presentation, we'll take an open Q&A, so you'll have a chance to ask any questions that come up throughout his presentation. Here, so I will let Dave take the floor whenever you're ready.
Do you see my screen now?
Nope, not yet.
Okay, it might just be going over. I did, let's see here. I try it again because... It says you are screen sharing.
Yep, we can see it now.
Okay, excellent. Excellent. Well, good to be here, everybody. Thanks for taking...
We don't see your screen anymore.
I'm going to just... I have two screens, so let me move this over here.
Okay.
Is that better? Are you seeing it now?
Nope, not yet.
Huh. I am going to try something else on. Of course, the technical issues.
Okay, sure. No worries. And for those of you who are just joining us, and we have quite a few people out there, as you guys probably know, we teach product management courses and data, as well as coding at our 6 campuses. So if you want more information on that, you can go to productschool.com and check that out.
Excellent. Do you see it now?
And it looks like I do see your screen, we just need to put it in presentation mode.
Okay, it is on my side in presentation mode, so I'm wondering why it's not showing up there. Well, and when I'll work on getting this, but I'll give you a little background so we can be efficient with time. Great to have everyone here today. So just a little bit about me, because I always think it's good to understand from a presenter's point of view, because we all have different biases and different lens that we see the world through. So let me try this. Really, it says that it's working. So for me, I've been a chemist turned attorney turned product manager. So, you know, the typical career path of folks, right? I've yet to see anyone that's done the different path that I've taken, but I'm sure there's others. So you never know how you end up in product. But that's also the nice thing about product management, because you have a lot of great folks. Can you see the screen now?
Not yet, but I'm going to go ahead and share it on my end, and then we can get that going. So
okay, yeah, let's do that, and because I'm not sure why. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to unplug my second monitor, because maybe that will.
That's okay. I've got it shared now. So if you want to continue, and I'll just I'll pay attention and make sure we get to the next slides for you.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so like I say, let's go on to the next slide. Today we're going to be talking about the intersection of data and analytics and products. So like I say, my background is actually jump one back. Sorry. My background is with products and product teams in various areas, but just so you know where I'm coming from, I've generally been more in big companies than small companies, but I've been with both, more in the software and services space, but financial services especially. So, you know, I definitely have been more exposed in the highly regulated area of things. So at least, you know, once again, understanding where I'm coming from, I'm very involved in a lot of things product here in town. And like I said, I started Beyond the Data recently. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so I'm stealing this a little bit from Jeff Lash, who spoke last week, and Jeff's a great guy, and he's been up here to present, and I presented down at his product camp in St. Louis. But he used this executive summary format. I'm sort of, you know, shamelessly stealing a little bit of that format from him. But why do we care? So companies that are disrupting spaces often are due to the data and analytics strategy more than anything else nowadays. So it's just such a key thing. Additionally, product managers that understand and have experience with implementing data and analytics dependent products will have a lot more opportunities, a lot more fun in their job, and just a lot more excitement, you know, as the years go on. Because there's a lot of things in product that can be frustrating over time, but there's also just a lot of good. And I think, working in a core space with more interesting challenges is just makes it more interesting to do what you're doing. So the takeaways that we're going to cover today, there's really a three-step view of data and analytics product strategy that I'm going to quickly go through, along with 6 ways to make good products great with data and analytics, a way to sort of think about things, and then 7 tips for PMs to increase data and analytics product success. So let's jump to the next one. So that's like say what I'm going to try to do. So, when I look at product strategy from a data and analytics perspective, I really simplify it into 3 things that you need to be cognizant of. So one, and by far one, obviously we all know that it's market need. We're looking for markets, opportunities. In the words of Clayton Christensen, we're trying to satisfy a job that the customer needs to be done. And if we shouldn't be designing products to fit the market. So that's all just product management basics, but it actually becomes more significant. It looks like it must have the PDF one because it skips some things, it looks like. But below at the bottom, you see there's really 3 things to think about here is don't confuse profit opportunity with market need. And I see that happening oftentimes when people are thinking in the data and analytics space, because it's very easy to say, okay, well, we generate more clicks now, we're going to get more revenue now, and this quarter we're going to make more money. But take a step back and understand really the customer experience, what the customer is really looking to get done, and then you can make decisions on what products to sort of satisfy based on that. Additionally, it's always important to understand demographics and regionalities when you're identifying market needs. But I think it's extra important when you're talking about in the data and analytics space, because there's such varied acceptance or non-acceptance, and sort of the creepy factors is just vary so much when you're talking data and analytics. Additionally, of course, rules and regulations, and once again, this is where my bias comes from, where I've been in highly regulated areas oftentimes, and really understanding what those rules and regulations are, and what, as another thing with Equifax just came out today, those things, and obviously that's, a whole different thing with information security, but it's also, just another reason to be aware of what's out there. Jump on to the next slide. So after we have that market need, we need to align that market need with the corporate data and analytics strategy capabilities. So really what your company's positioned to do. So having that clear data and analytics strategy is ideal. What you're going to notice, at least with a lot of medium and larger size companies, is that that data and analytics strategy isn't that clear. So it's oftentimes going to be very dependent on which area of the business, or it might not, exist at all, or 2 people in the same department will have very different views. So as product manager, you're going to want to try to understand what people's perspectives are, and then help try to craft that, if you're able to, or influence it, that will also benefit your customers in the long run. So understanding where that is. Now, certainly certain companies, have, very clear data analytics strategies. And I would argue that, there isn't one strategy that is per se right, as we're talking here, right? And, a company like Apple is going to have a very different, it's clear that they have a very different data and analytics strategy than a company like Google. So, even those 2 companies that use data and analytics a lot, they think about things very different. Understanding data and analytics capabilities and priorities is important, especially, as a product manager, because you understand what you're able to do with the resources, like what you'll actually be able to deliver if you're trying to go after certain problems, or what you'll need to be asking if there's new stuff that you're going to need resource-wise. And additionally, recognizing your Me Too data, like what you have is your Me Too versus your unique data and analytics. So that's something that's very important. Let's jump on to the next one. I'm going to blow through these a little bit quickly just because of given time. But these slides will be made available afterwards. So next, of course, then you get to the solution execution stage. And so you're always trying to, okay, so you've identified your market needs. You're now aligning that with your capabilities as a corporation and your strategy as a corporation. Okay, now you need to, execute, right? And you determine what product solutions you're going to have, and actually get those out to market. But things to think about here, and of course, I'm in Minneapolis, so what I have here is, of course, and I used this picture in a presentation, actually, it was to an analytics conference about a month and a half ago. Obviously, it's a reference to Target and to the whole pregnancy scandal, but it's one of those things to just be aware about, and that's that. I have that as a bottom bullet, is pay caution to overly creepy. It's something to be very cognizant of as a product manager. But once again, like we were talking in the first thing is, what's creepy to one customer segment isn't to the other. So who are you targeting, and who else is going to be exposed to your product? Additionally, like I mentioned earlier, customer value over revenue chasing, be cognizant of that. Really, I think great companies and great products are being built thinking about customer experience and customer value and constantly measuring that, not just, where things are initially, but where, constantly where that is, and not just straight revenue chasing as some organizations do. Balancing data science versus the cool factor. So what that means is, when you talk about a data scientist, there's scientists for a reason, and many of these are PhDs in statistics or PhDs in computer science, things like that. That they're people that have a lot of great vision, they've gone to school and they've postdocs and etc. But they also get stuck on certain problems that they like to do, and they'll chase those things, and bringing them back to always have that same focus of customer value and partnering with them to make sure that's the case is very important. One thing, there was a slight update to this one. I missed it actually listing it before, but that's my bad. I didn't send the updated one to you, Cassandra. But one thing to also emphasize is it's really important to have interdisciplinary teams collaborating together, and ideally in the same location, or at least having location being able to co-locate, ideal, even if you're not able to co-locate, at least having those interdisciplinary teams, so that it's not, one person from one department working from another person from another department when you're talking about the core team. Just like a good development team, a good analytics team should have that interdisciplinary nature. So let's jump on to the next one. So what this is a way to say, okay, if you have an existing product, what data and analytics can make products great? What sort of takes it to that next level? And there's a lot of great things out there that companies are doing. One company here in Minneapolis, and I think about, is Sleep Number, and they presented at a recent conference of ours here. And of course, you think of them as the Sleep Number, Select Comfort, their beds, but they've really done a tremendous amount of things in the analytics area, and then building products out of that analytics, that data that they're collecting. So they're really differentiating themselves, and really, if you understand how well people are sleeping, and not just like the Fitbit understanding, I have one of those, and it's like, oh, okay, you're a little restless, things like that. But, truly understanding how people sleep, what makes better sleep, it's just such an important factor. So, them understanding that and saying, okay, we're going to be consciously collecting data as a starting point, so our capabilities are at a certain level, and then going to that next level, they're actually under the strategy department, the analytics position, and being able to then come out with a lot of great products that are ancillary to that physical product. So they're adding a lot of digital to that physical component. They're also, and then some other things is, I don't know if they're doing this, but I know other companies, and I've been, had products that have done this, is we've done an existing product for a certain market, but then we had certain data that we were able to collect, and we had certain usage rights to that data, and oftentimes that's like, at a aggregated level, you can collect data from maybe consumers, and then you aggregate it together, and then you use it in another format for a different market, whether it's maybe marketing or other informational purposes. So that data and analytics as a service is really something to be thinking about, because it's a way to not add a lot of additional costs to a product from a product development standpoint, because you're probably already collecting some of that, but then also just enhancing the amount of revenue that you can have there. Additionally, providing additional related offerings, and so you may have one product that's a physical product, and all of a sudden then you're able to add another product to it. For example, you have a connected refrigerator. I don't know if, I'm sure people watch Silicon Valley, and they had the connected refrigerators, and you could also do some additional offerings. Okay, your milk and your other things are nearly out. Are we going to just pre-order those to the local grocery store that's down the road, and you can have your groceries shipped? I mean, it might be an additional service offering for your customers. We all know about enhancing marketing and sales channels with data and analytics for our products. So that's just sort of what most of us are spending time on when they say data and analytics. Additionally, enabling additional business models. So instead of moving from the traditional, okay, I'm selling a product, to I'm actually leasing that product. Earlier this week, I was at the Minnesota Cup, which is a big sort of statewide large startup event where there's hundreds of thousands or millions of hours that are given away at the end of it. And one of the companies I was talking to beforehand, because they had the sort of the demo pits, is a pillbox company. So a couple of these MDs, medications, and when they're actually being adhered to, can bring down the cost of healthcare significantly. So this is one of those connected pillboxes, so to speak, and had a lot of cool bells and whistles as part of that. Seemed pretty effective, but they would not sell the product. They said they would only license the product, lease it out to folks, as opposed to, because that's their business model. So it really, was a way to sort of have a perpetual revenue stream in the whole SaaS model, but just now it's hardware as a service, so to speak. And so that's something to definitely think about, is those additional business models. Also, understanding customer usage and personalization is just critical. There's still a ton of opportunities, and we think there's a lot of great personalization that's already out there, but there's a lot more opportunities that are untapped in that personalization space. We had Joe Constant, and in fact, I think we have that video up on YouTube from MinneAnalytics at our last conference, and he had a great thing on recommender systems. And I just think of all the different things that are out there that are opportunities to do better in personalization, whether it's restaurants that you go in, or it's the mobile apps that you use. So there's a lot of things out there. Data and analytics are key to that. Let's jump to the next one, and we'll hit on this, and then we'll take some questions and then move on from there and get you along your day. So there's 7 tips that I put down to increase your success as a product manager in this whole data and analytics space. This list could be a lot longer, but it's just things that I consciously, try to think about every time when I'm thinking of, things to make sure to be more successful as a product manager. First is always, number one, it's got to be, is always focusing on customer experience and value. That's just always got to be on your mind, and it's not just thinking about it, but it's actually, understanding your customer, getting out in the field, as we all know. But then the second is, with data and analytics, challenge yourself to think different. I mean, there's certainly things of rules and regulations, and there's other things to consider that you sort of have a field of play that you got to stay in somewhat. But at the same time, challenge yourself to think different. Think of Internet of Things and opportunities to take a physical product, make it a connected product, get some new data. Or think of your digital product and the data that you're collecting, and what additional avenues can you harness that data for another offering, whether it's DaaS or whatever. Think of, is there leasing or licensing opportunities? Understanding your unique data. That's just really pivotal, is like, and people oftentimes think their data is unique just because their clickstream data is from them. Well, that doesn't, everyone's got their clickstream data. And if you're collecting the same type of clickstream information, well, that's not that unique. And just, but really understand, do you have certain things that are unique? Those things that are unique, you can get better margins off of, because you're offering more value to your customers. So assuming that data is the type of data that is useful. Learn the data and analytics basics. And so what I mean here is not to go and get your PhD in statistics, but it's really going out and learning a little bit on Coursera, going to Udemy. There's a lot of great courses to start diving in a little bit. It'll make your interactions with your analytics partners in crime, so to speak, more effective. We all like to know that we each have an understanding and appreciation of what each other is doing, and we're each, if you're passionate about what you're doing, you're gonna, it's gonna show, and it's also gonna show if you care what the other person's doing. So learning a little bit on data and analytics is something I definitely recommend to folks. Reading up on data privacy and regulation, and once again, this is where my bias comes in, right? So, but understanding, especially if you're in a healthcare, or if you're in a financial services type arena, or if you do anything in Europe, or some of those other areas where things are just really pressure cookers right now, and it's only, I think, going to get worse. So it's good for all of us to better keep on upping our data privacy and regulation game. Building strong partnerships with the analytics team. If you're in an area where it's very team-based, which a lot of big companies are. It's your analytics team, your product team, your et cetera, and you're not as much as sort of interdisciplinary teams. Really building up those partnerships is essential to be successful, and sort of being that almost translator between those teams as a product manager is essential. So something to think about. Also, engaging internal bottlenecks, or at least potential internal bottlenecks early. So when we talk about that, things like information security, I've seen products that, we're trying to get off the door, or research efforts in search for products that just got locked down in information security because they they brought them in too late. So whether it's legal, whether it's IT, whether it's third-party vendors that you may be working with that you may need data from or some other item from as part of it, engage them early, because people in general, they all want to be helping the customer. I mean, fundamentally, most people really have an interest when they hear that they're going to add value. They want to help, but they also don't want to just be brought in at the end and sort of discounted their roles. So engaging them early is important. So I think that's good for those 7 tips. If you want to go on to the next slide, Cassandra. Yeah, so here's my information. Feel free to reach out to me. I'll answer any questions you may have after this. I know we'll try to get a couple questions in, but my email, Twitter, LinkedIn, or blog. So let's jump to questions. And I thank everyone for the time again. It's great to be here at Product School, because it's, any way to keep on learning, I think is great, because all of us should be very curious if we're going to be a good product manager.
Absolutely. That's a really great point. And thank you for presentation as well. I'm going to stop sharing here and then open up the floor for some questions. I saw a couple come in, so I'm gonna look here and pull one now. So the first question is from Kosuke. Could you give me specific examples that you've done and what was successful for your customer?
So let's see here. I mean, for which, could you give a little more context? Is there a certain thing that you're looking at? Because there's a lot of products, I think one of the things from when you're talking about like from a DaaS solution, it's if you're going to try to do an additional add-on. So for example, and I have to be a little bit careful because a lot of these things are financial services, so I'm a little leery of how much I give. But so one of the companies I was with, our fundamental thing is our data wasn't that unique, and our data we had collect from a lot of public sources. But what we were really successful at, and why we added a lot of value in the data and analytics space, is we were able to take messy data, bring it together, make it very clean, and then understanding how that customer really needed to consume that data and making it very easy for them to consume. So because of that, we are able to have huge margins in that business. Things that you think anyone could do, because it's like we could all get that data, we could all sell that same data. Now there's always the sales channels and all that kind of stuff, and appreciate that. But it was tremendous margins for the type of non-unique data that was, and that was really getting to understanding what the customer need was. They didn't want to, they could have grabbed this data themselves. These are large Fortune 500 companies. They could have grabbed this data, built a team and done that, but they didn't want to, that wasn't their focus. That wasn't where their value was. So understanding that there was this need there, we were good at it, and, honing that in.
Right. Okay, awesome. Here, our next question comes from Stephen Fish. What are typical internal conflict points to expect in the development process?
Yeah, I think data and analytics, the challenge becomes, so it depends on where you're at in maturity level. So organizations that are starting out with brand new analytics teams, the real challenge is a lot of people want to take credit for that area, because it's sort of the new sort of shiny area. So there's oftentimes, especially when you're talking medium to larger size companies, it's like, is it being run by strategy? Is it decisions? Are they being run by IT? Like, who gets to sort of, get the limelight? So one of the ways to, if you're as a product manager, you're just trying to sort of be that, make the different orchestra pieces and make them play together. Someone was using that reference. I think, was it last week when Jeff did? Someone recently had used that reference. I was like, oh, that's a good reference. Yeah, but you really are trying to get people, yeah. So you're trying to get people to play together from as a team. So the biggest way to do that really is building those bonds. But that's going to be the biggest thing is that shifting internal, at least the things that I've seen with medium and larger size companies. And there's also going to just be unrealistic expectations of what you can do with what resources. So starting out small, determining what those problems are, and showing success, especially if you're newer. Now the problems change as the maturity changes along. So, but those are examples when you're just starting out down this path. Make sure to pick small problems that are very defined that you can definitely win on, and then also really engage people, engage the team very well across the different necessary sort of bottlenecks and so PowerPoints, I'll call them, in the organization.
Right.
And once again, my bias, because I've been in more medium and larger size companies, my small companies, even then it's still those issues.
Right. Here, so we have quite a few more come in, but we have time for just maybe one or two more. So let's see. This one is from Anand. How effective can one be as a data product manager unless he's proficient technically in analytics? So basically, can you advise on what basic analytics skill, for example, Python or statistical modeling, one should develop?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a product manager, one area that is helpful, because I think one of the most important things that product managers can be really good at is telling their story, right? So making sure to get stakeholder buy-ins, things like that. So I actually think things like Tableau are a good way to start, or there's things like Alteryx or things like that. I think diving that much in fact, I don't know if Edward, he was maybe going to be on, but we were having this debate at coffee, maybe was it last weekend, and the idea of people in the business, should they even be spending time learning to code? Or there's so many tools now that are being designed to try to minimize that need, and can you approach and do some small tests? Because I mean, it sort of depends. If you're in a small organization, you're going to have to dive in maybe a little bit more. If you're in a big organization, it's better to just partner with folks that are good at it, and sort of have your sort of guerrilla teams, especially if you maybe get like a little bit of extra time or a little R&D time that you and that other person can sort of work on a problem together. And I think having some skills like Tableau, because I think those are good for data visualization, but you can honestly do a lot of that stuff in Excel, whether people like it or not. Excel is still so widely used, right? And I do think there's things like Alteryx and RapidMiner and some of those other things that are kind of interesting tools where you can give those a try. They usually have free versions, like RapidMiner. It's limited to, I think, 10,000 rows, but you can do a lot of basic analytics exercises where you want to test things out. But certainly if you have the inclination, there's a ton of online learning that can be done in those areas. I just think there's so many other things to develop with yourself, especially when you're a new PM, that spending time on that may not be the best. But if you have no programming experience whatsoever, I always say, hey, if you're working with the software space, like, it's good to be exposed to some programming in your life. So if you have no experience, then that is good to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good advice. So I'm going to take this this next question here from Demba. I come from a business school and I want to break into product management. Do I have a disadvantage compared to tech people for example, if somebody has a computer science degree? And what advice would you give?
Yeah, I mean, I think the question, once again, this is sort of situational dependent, where so I'd say a lot of MBAs come out, and they're if you're in business school, if you're MBA, or if you're in was it MBA or was it undergrad business, did it say?
Business school.
Business school. So either one. I mean, a lot of people with business school come out and are successful. I mean, personally, and this is, and I was a chemistry major, so I'm not, I don't consider myself a liberal arts major, but I do think a lot of folks, although I was out of the College of Liberal Arts originally, but a lot of folks that are best, that I've seen a lot of the real top-notch talent is out of the liberal arts, just happens to be, but there's always those exceptional cases. I actually think folks, at least once again, this is me, Minneapolis, and the market that I'm in. I've worked in, St. Louis and some other areas, but in Midwestern. In general, actually, the folks from the computer science departments and those departments have not been as strong in the product management space. So I'd say I certainly always prefer when I hire folks that are more coming from a different area other than technical, but there's certainly some really good computer science folks that do jump there. But as a whole, I'd say that you should actually feel like you have an advantage. Now, I think part of that advantage is what else do you know about it, and showing that you can, harness technical knowledge. So if you're coming out of business school, but you're not able to grasp technical problems, and you're going to be, exposed to data and analytics, and, if you don't, then you're going to be having issues. So right. I think I don't think it's a disadvantage. In fact, for me, that's actually an advantage in this market that I'm in.
Okay. Great. Well, do we have time? We can probably take maybe one more question. So here's one from Suman. Is there any decision-making model that you use with data analytics?
Decision-making model. I wouldn't say, I mean, it's sort of like product management. I don't see, there's certainly things that you consider when you're thinking of pricing or you're thinking things like that. So each one of those, you know, it sort of depends on what you're talking about. So there are certain things where you would say, like, what's the business model you want to use, or what's your things, and you'll weigh different things. But there isn't a sort of a nice flow chart that, you know, although, hey, it'd be great if someone's able to develop that. I'm sure somebody probably has thought through this like ridiculously complicated flow chart. But no, I do not have a particular decision model. But it maybe if you want to reach out to me with a little bit more specific on like which area you're talking about, there may be some things where, you know, sort of like you'd weigh certain things as you'd factor things in. But it's yeah, I don't have a magical model. Sorry.
No, I'm going to take one more question if you actually don't mind, from Suman as well. How does big data and machine learning, how can they be used in product management? And do you use any tools or techniques regarding these?
Yeah, so you can use a lot of things. In fact, one of my buddies I was just talking to the other day, their whole product is an AI-based product, right? So, so certainly, you know, and it's a company that's geared towards recording phone conversations, and based on those phone conversations, they come around with the key takeaways. So they could listen to our conversation, what we're having right now, and come out with what are those key takeaways, along with a more comprehensive set of notes. And so that's an example of just a straight AI type based problem. And then there's also things like machine learning is just used in so much nowadays. And that's where I say is, like, you know, fundamentally, I'm actually working on a conference here locally called Northrupt in January, that it is all against all these disruptive technologies. And one of these, you know, AI, machine learning, like it can be used pretty much any product you're wanting. I mean, when we're talking the Sleep Number, for example, you know, they're using exactly that as they're trying to understand sleep patterns, and then you know, give recommendations off that, because it's got to learn based on, you know, the data that's coming in. So nowadays, I like it or not, it's something that's essential. So that's why at least having a fundamental concept around it, and then being able to like say, it's not like you're going to build a neural net, but at the same time, you do need to understand what those things are and understand how to work with your analytics partners in, like, saying, okay, well, for this, I'm trying to, you know, okay, I have a bunch of images. Like, so for example, one company I worked for, we had talked about this idea for a long time. So, and it's been a long time since I've been there, so I think I can talk about it. But we thought about taking Google Images, because we service the insurance industry. And so we said, well, let's take all the Google images on Street View, and let's try to process and try to identify where all the fire hydrants are in the country, right? So, because there's, you know, the closer you are to fire hydrants, the better your lower risk of having your house burned down. So, so the idea is, like, hey, if you could take all the Google Street View and use you know, AI to understand where all those fire hydrants are, you know, boom, you got yourself a product. And it sounds very simple if you're able to do it successfully. At the time, this was, like, say, probably 7 years ago now, just wasn't up to snuff, you know, where you'd be able to do that, both the imagery and also with the capabilities of AI at that time. So, so certainly, like, there's just tons of opportunities. Love to, like I said, I love to riff on these things. So if you're interested, like, you know, reach out. We can you know, talk online if you have certain ideas and you're like, how would I handle this?
Awesome, absolutely. And guys, just we'll definitely get those slides shared with you as well.
Yeah. I'll send you the most updated version too, Cassandra. Sorry about that.
Okay, no worries, perfect. Okay, great. Well, I think that, that's all the time we have for questions today. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us and everything. We appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you, Cassandra. And sorry about the technical issues, everyone. Have a great day.
No worries. Thanks. Have a great day. Bye.